cup of tea like this.
Like this.
My cup of tea like this, like this.
Like this. Yeah.
Hey monkeys, how you doing? Damian Keys here, and welcome to a slightly ill, flu-ridden hashtag Ask Damo show, where you get to ask questions about music and business and social media and other bits, and we will answer the questions and snot all over the table. With me, as always, is Melissa.
Hi.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, all right.
We're both
How
a little
are you
bit
feeling?
ill.
Yeah,
Snotty.
just like 90%.
You've been having flu medication dreams.
Yeah, I've been having really trippy lemon slip dreams, so, check that out.
Pretty cool. You know those dreams where you're just in the middle of your dream and then you just realise it's a dream?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, and then you go, oh, hang on.
There shouldn't be stormtroopers everywhere.
It's a dream! Right, so we've got this.
Yeah, and it's from Canada.
This is from Canada. How great is that? Do you know what? Things are just building at the moment, and I'm getting people from all over the world, and I cannot tell you how exciting it is. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's
I almost want to be really gentle with it. I don't want to break it. Because it's from Canada.
Yeah,
Therefore,
it's
it must.
such a long way.
It must be. Yeah, if it is
Things
broken.
It must have seen.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh, look at this.
Oh, cool.
This is cool.
Oh, I'm really glad all the rattling was like buttons and
Yeah,
badges,
not
not
broken.
broken pieces.
Oh, this is awesome.
Oh, these are cool.
Feels like 1969. Oh, these are great. I love these. Do you know what's brilliant about this? Is this feels really retro. I love it. And I absolutely love this. And do you know, there's a funny story about this.
Yeah.
This is going to trigger something. I don't know who it's from. Who's it from? United Power Soul.
United Power Soul.
I love it. United Power Soul. Right, we're gonna find out. He looks like me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Show him that.
Yeah.
That's freaky.
That's Damo. Am I right? That's so cool.
Do you know what's brilliant about this? But for ages, I wanted to buy a Walkman.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm like, I just like Walkmans, but I don't have any
You
taste.
used to do like half-an-hour walks with your Walkman, right?
Well, when I was a kid, the CD player, you won't remember this, but some people will remember this. But when it came out, portable CD players, but you kind of had to hold them like that, and you kind of, if you moved, they'd kind of like stop playing. But absolutely, I'm gonna go after this. Can you remind me? I'm gonna go and I'm gonna buy a Walkman. I'm even gonna have those kind of really little orange things that go over your head instead of the buds in your ears thing. So amazing! Thank you very much. I'm gonna buy a thing, but I'm also gonna put that there.
That's so cool.
Amazing! Thank you so much.
Thank you for sending these
From
over.
Canada.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Right. Well.
All right, let's get started.
Begin?
I'm in a very good mood.
Okay. Awesome. So, first question's from Daniel.
Okay.
And we actually got a lot from Instagram this week, which is cool. So go check out
All
the
from
Insta.
Instagram?
Yeah.
So we put it out. We put the question out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But this is basically an Instagram takeover.
Yeah.
Because there were so many good questions. Excuse me. Lots from Instagram, and so go and subscribe to the Instagram. Damian Keys 1. So go find that.
So first question was, Damo, can you talk about branding and a good way to do that? It's quite an open question.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And branding is a word that sounds quite corporate.
Yeah.
Bands do not work enough at their branding.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll tell you why, is because I did a talk in Portsmouth this week. And I was chatting, there's about 100 students from 2 different colleges. Platform 1, absolutely brilliant. David Pontin doing such an amazing job. And then more students from South Downs, and just so many great students. Really, really brilliant to meet them. And part of it was talking about branding. And then afterwards I was chatting to a few people. And the thing with branding is people think of it as like the logo and the website, and then they go, oh, and the colours, and the colour scheme is your branding, and so therefore your branding is kind of, if you have orange, then that's kind of sort of like the Coca-Cola red, and while that is true, it's just scraping. For me, it's just scraping the top of what is branding, because branding is everything. Branding is your identity. So, yes, it might be what font you use, but at the same point, anything that's to do with your identity is to do with your brand. Yeah. And so branding, marketing all fits into this thing of brand. So it goes as deep as how you answer the phone, or in social media case, how you answer your messages, or do you answer your messages, or how you communicate in the comment section of your social media, how you are perceived. is kind of your brand.
Yeah.
And it isn't just what we've got a cool logo. And you know a word that crops up all of the time, which drives me mad? Vibe.
Oh.
Vibe. And I'm like, vibe is important.
Yeah.
But there's so much emphasis being put on vibe, and you need some substance. When it comes to it, you've got to be able to back it up when it comes to your brand. So it's all very well having really amazing artwork, fantastic, but the music has to back it up. You as creatives, you as performers, everything about it, you have to back up the whole thing. And so your brand, whether it's as a musician, whether it's as a band, whether it's as a business, for me, it's your identity.
Yeah.
It's how you are perceived. So you can think of people that you work with that you just think, what a total twat. That's part of their brand.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to be known as that. People who turn up on time, people who don't turn up on time, that's part of their brand. It's part of their makeup, and it's part of how you are perceiving them. So,
So in some ways, would you say it kind of encompasses everything that you're actually doing on your social media?
I think it is. Yeah, I think brand. I think brand is, and so I work with a guy called John Michael Morgan, and you should check this guy out because he's absolutely brilliant. You'll go and find him. Yeah, you'll go and find him on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff. And he wrote a book called Brand Against the Machine, and it's absolutely brilliant book. And it just goes way past, oh yeah, you need a logo, which I think a lot of people think that. They just think, well, I've got my logo, I've got my website, what colour should it be? Should we have business cards? Should we have headed paper? And that feels like, that's just design.
Yeah.
That's not brand. Like, what is at the heart of your favourite brands? What do they stand for? And what do they mean to you? And how do they get that message across? And how do you then take that in? And do you believe in it? All of that is brand. So I think I would love to see bands and how the takeaway for this is how bands especially can fit in their branding is things like first impressions. As soon as you go on someone's Facebook, I want to see instantly who you are. I want to see who you are and what you stand for. And if there are things that you stand for, it should be so instant.
Yeah.
If you are like absolute standing for being vegans, then I don't want to be a year in and be like, oh, you're vegan.
Yeah.
No, that wouldn't happen. But either way, these things that you stand for, I think they should be there. They should be in a place where you see something and sums it up. That's why I think with things like a photo shoot and a video shoot from a first impression, I want to see a band and I want to say, I know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll see a band and they'll all have like no sleeves and tattoos everywhere, and I'm not thinking to myself, I wonder what music I'm just looking. I'm going. I know exactly what I'm going to get, and that's what a band should be. I don't think they should be a surprise. So when it comes to your brand, don't just think about a logo or should we have a website. It's absolutely everything. It encompasses all the marketing. It encompasses on how anyone's going to perceive you as a person and you as an entity and what your identity is. Yeah. So, if you want to learn more about branding, that book, Brand Against the Machine, I think is an absolutely brilliant book. And John's a brilliant author. He's a really good guy. So I think that's something I would recommend. Yeah. But yeah, I think branding needs to go way further than just design stuff. Yeah. Which is what bands tend to look at.
It's everything.
It's everything, yeah. Absolutely everything.
Awesome. So question 2 is from Lalio on Insta as well. So how much and how should I charge for mentoring bands? Which is an interesting one.
Very good question. And the reason why I like this question is because I mentor bands every single day. How much do I charge? Nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. And we are living in a time now where YouTube is available and bands are learning faster than they've ever learned before. If you wanted to learn how the music industry works, you'd have to go to music college. Yeah. Because that was the only place. And for me, when I was a kid, I didn't really understand. So I went and I found people and they told me how it worked and they gave me strategies. There was no YouTube. It was pre-internet, and that's how old I am. And so at that point I was like, well, I need to go to these places. Not anymore. You don't need to go to music college. You can go on YouTube and you can find all of that stuff, which would have taken me a year or 2 years to really get to grips with. You can learn that in a day for free. Yeah. And then there's people like me saying, no, I'll help you. Yeah. So, but I don't want to put you off. I don't want to say don't mentor bands because I don't know your background. If you have got a background of being in bands, of going through a system of being able to help bands. I started somewhere. I absolutely think you should mentor bands. But the two things is you have to be able to back up what you can do. So, for example, I absolutely have every faith in my ability that if you give me a band, I can make them sound better.
Yeah.
I can make them have a bigger following very, very quickly. I can definitely get to the point, if they will listen to me, they will listen, that's a big if, but if they will listen to me, I could manage a band to a level where they could get a record deal or put out their own record and sell a bunch of records. But they would have to listen to me.
Yeah.
So therefore, I have total faith. And the reason why I can do that is because I've done it a bunch of times. Yeah. So if you haven't done it a bunch of times, the first thing you need to do is prove. Yeah. You have to prove it, you have to get out and you have to do it. You have to work with a band like you and say, right, do you know what? Whether you've got a manager, whether you don't have a manager, let me help, let me get on board. And you start somewhere. And I was with Mark Clayton this week from Pitch Shifter. And one thing he did when he was younger, Mark's done so many jobs in the music industry, including tour management. But when he started on merch. I think it was 9 Inch Nails, but it was a band like that. And he started on merch, and the guy put him on merch and says, you're going to start off selling t-shirts. And the reason of that is because so much revolves around that, and you will see so much of the music industry whilst you're there on these gigs and seeing everything and seeing how the tours work, that if you can do that, it's a really good gateway into the industry. Of course, when you say, do you want to go into the music industry, everyone's like, yeah, I want to work at a record label, or I want to manage a massive band. Nobody wants to start off by just going and selling t-shirts. Yeah. But that is such an amazing way into the industry. And he did that, and Mark's tour managed massive bands all over the world. So I think, firstly, you've got to put your money where your mouth is. You have to be able to do it. If I said, actually, do you know what? I've been watching a lot of UFC. I'm a big fan. And you get some really good coverage on TV. So I think I can probably mentor a UFC fighter. I can't do that. I can critique them. That'd be interesting.
I mean, interesting turn for you.
I can't do it. But give me 10 years. Yeah. If I really go for it, then maybe I could. Yeah. So I would say that's the first thing. Now, when it comes to how much you charge for mentoring, you have to remember one thing, and this is beyond mentoring bands. This is the same if you want to be a manager, if you want to be in PR and do PR for bands, if you want to be a promoter and you're just starting out. One thing you have to remember, videographer, photographer, same thing. Bands have no money. Yeah. They have none. You know this because if you're watching this, you're probably either are or have been a musician, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm skint. My band is skint. I am skint. How am I going to make this happen? The biggest question I get, or the biggest thing with all of the questions I get is tagged on the end is always without any money. Yeah. How do I without any money? And I'm like, oh God. And so because of that, if you think that bands haven't got any money, how are you going to charge them for mentoring? So what you can do is you can be smart. So for example, I'll give you a classic example, this channel. This channel is all about helping musicians. I don't charge musicians. I've got meetings today with a bunch of musicians from bands that have been booked in for a while. I'm going to go and I'm going to have a cup of tea and we're going to sit and we're going to make a plan and I'm going to help them. How much do I charge? Nothing at all. It's because I want to do it. I want to be able to help them. They're part of the following, and whether it's a Skype or a face-to-face. Don't make any money from it. Could I? Yes, but I wouldn't charge the musicians, and that's the key. I wouldn't charge the musicians, but what I would do is I'd find other ways to monetize it. And this goes back to exactly the same thing, which is bands are absolutely desperate to monetize their music. Buy my music. And I'm like, it's the wrong thing to monetize. Make the audience with the music and monetize anything else. Yeah. Once you've got the audience, you can monetize any types of merch. Once they're obsessed with you, it's not the money, it's not the music, that's not the money aspect. But because of history and because of tradition, musicians are just desperate. No, but if we put it on CD, then they will buy it. If we put it on to tape, they will buy it. Or do something awesome like that tape. Do something absolutely fantastic that makes me go, I'm going to check these guys out. Become a fan. And then 3 months down the line, you bring out some great merch, and I'm like, yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah. And instead of paying 79p for a single, I'm going to be paying 35 quid for a hoodie because I'm a fan of the band. So it's the same thing with this. If you try and mentor a band and get them to pay for it, I think you'll really struggle. Yeah. Unless you've got some real heavyweight. I think if I did that now, I could make some money, but I'd have to charge so little because bands. It's not because because bands just haven't got any money.
Yeah,
It's not because they don't want to. It's just how do you actually make proper money? If I said to a band, right, I'll mentor you, but you're gonna have to pay me 500 quid a month.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, oh God, I want to, but that's a lot of money. So you will get some bands that will pay for it, but I could monetize this easily if I wanted to. And let me tell you how I will monetize this. So the book, I'm not planning on making loads of money from the book. That's not a way I'll make loads of money. Keynotes, I'll probably make money from keynotes of actually going out and doing talks and people actually paying me. But the biggest way is 3, 4, 5 years down the line, doesn't matter about now because I don't need the money and I'm not worried about it, but 3, 4, 5 years down the line, my audience is 500,000 people instead of what it is now of 20, 30,000. 500,000 people are going, this guy. At that point, I just get people to sponsor stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to do this show. I'm going to carry on giving away my free advice, but I just think it needs to be sponsored. And so Ampeg are going to come on board, or Red Bull are going to come on board, and they're just going to say, oh, it's the same thing, it's the Ask Damo show, but it's sponsored by Red Bull, and I'm just drinking some Red Bull again like whilst we do the show.
It's the Damo show, just a bit more energetic.
Exactly, just we're really going for it like this. I'm just there going, you can do it. But yeah, so that's the way I could monetize it. And are the musicians paying for it? No, they're not paying for it at all.
So it just comes down to monetizing around the brand again.
It's being smart. It's about building the brand, building the audience, looking after the audience, and making them into fans of your journey, and then looking at how either they or other people can monetize it. There's this big thing at the moment which I keep hearing about this. The 1,000 super fans. If you can get 1,000 super fans to pay you £100, £100,000. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's still hard. It's not as easy as that. It's really hard. It's doable, but it's hard. But here's another way. You just keep going and going and going and going until instead of having 1,000 super fans, but you've got 50,000 people that are like, oh, yeah, I follow your stuff. I quite like that. And then you go and get someone else to pay you £10,000 for making the album, and you go and get someone else to pay you £20,000 for doing a tour, and you get someone else to pay you £20,000 for doing something else, and you bring out your own merch, and that is a way that you can monetize around what you are creating or what you're making. So you can still get your super fans to buy into stuff, but if you want to get 1,000 super fans, it's not like you've got 1,000 fans on YouTube or 1,000 fans on Facebook. It doesn't work. If you want 1,000 people to pay you £100, you're probably going to need an audience of 100,000. Because it doesn't work where you just go, no, we've just got 1,000 people on Facebook and they all just go crazy. They don't. It doesn't work like that.
Odds.
So if you want to get 1,000 super fans, you're going to need a hell of a lot of people on your Facebook. By which point you can probably monetize it in other ways. So my advice is it Lalio? My advice, Lalio, is just start. Don't worry about the money. If you can get a band so they're in a position where they're actually touring, and you can show someone something and say, I did this, I did that, and you've got that track history, the next band will be interested. And then the next band will, and the next band will. So you kind of need to have something that you can say, look what I have done. If you've already done that, because you might be not nodding going, done it loads of times. If you've done that, then for a start, we should be chatting. But also, if you've done that, then I would build the audience like I'm doing, and you can just copy this channel. There's no reason why you can't do exactly the same as what I'm doing, and then monetize elsewhere.
Okay, cool. So question 3 is from the Bell City Players. Should a band that's been around a year tour? If so, how do you go about booking a tour? What are the benefits of touring?
And so what I love about this question, what's brilliant is, this goes to show the time that we live in. That the question is, should a band tour? Because it comes down to consumption. Let me tell you a story about consumption. Come with me on a journey of consumption. I'm going to tell you 2 parts to this story. This is kind of partly around selling music and about consumption. So my dad, love my dad. He's awesome. I think he's about, I don't know, 100. So the other day he phones me up and he says, I bought a new car. He's very Welsh. I bought a new car. And I was like, oh, brilliant. He's like, it's a Nissan Qashqai. And I'm like, great. He's like, I've got a problem. I was like, okay. He's like, it hasn't got a CD player. So I was like, oh yeah, cars don't have CD players anymore.
Yeah.
That's just a thing. They've kind of gone now. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm really sad about this.
Yeah. And he's got 7 CDs.
Yeah.
Right? He's got Dire Straits, he's got the Eagles, he's got Queen. He's got good taste,
Yeah,
to be fair.
so I was about to say, it sounds like you.
Yeah, he's got good taste. Fleetwood Mac. So he's got some really good... But that's what he's got. And he's just like... And he's like, how do I plug my phone into my car?
Yeah.
You don't plug your phone into anything anymore. Those days are gone. So he's like, I just want my CD. I want CDs because that's what he knows. He knows CDs. He knows that he can get in his car, he can put his CD player, he can take a CD out, he can put the next CD in. If he's got a 6, remember
That's
the days?
literally me,
I got 6 CD changer. I remember getting a car where instead of
I'm the
having
only
one.
one left.
I remember having a car where instead of having 1 CD, I had a 6 CD changer,
Yeah.
and I was just like, boom. And now you can just have any music that's ever been created in the world. So that's his consumption.
Yeah.
So trying to sell him iTunes or MP3s or something, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just like, I don't need all that. My life isn't that. And it's partly an age thing, but it's also just, that's his consumption.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward a couple of weeks back, I was having a chat with my kid, and he's really fascinated about business and so what we do and that kind of stuff. Okay. And he says to me, so you say that people don't buy music anymore. Why? And I was like, okay, so music used to be attached to something and now it's not attached to anything. And I said, so think about it like this. I was like, when was the last time you bought music from iTunes? And he said to me, iTunes sells music.
No way.
And I was like,
oh my gosh.
wow. Like, and that's his consumption. He's a different age.
Yeah.
He's much younger.
Crazy.
He's not in a point where he's thinking about it like that. So for him, when I said to him, what do you think iTunes does? And he said, it's the App Store. Like, they sell apps. That's what it is. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
Yeah, I suppose it is. That's consumption. That's the difference. And that's why when people say, should we have CDs or should we have tapes or should we have vinyl? Well, it doesn't matter about what you want. It matters about what the consumption of your audience is. So if your audience is 35 to 45, then having some way of paying by Bitcoin is possibly not the answer. You know, if your audience is 16 to 19, maybe it is. So it's the consumption of the consumer, and it's not just what you fancy. So, and if you are an absolute hardcore technical metal band and you decide to release your music on vinyl, I think you'll struggle a little bit because the music is very, very compressed in order to make that sort of music, which doesn't reflect it as well on vinyl. And the people who listen to your music probably aren't vinyl lovers like the way a Fleetwood Mac sort of fan would listen to it. I'm summarising. So it's the consumer that wins as opposed to you. And so with this question of we've been around for a year, should we tour? Well, the question is it worth it? Yeah. Because loads of people, when I read that question, loads of people who are watching this just went, oh, come on, you're a band, of course you should tour. Yeah. Why? You should tour if it's the right thing for you. If it's not the right thing for you, don't. If you put out music and all of a sudden you have such an amazing logo and audience and following that you're making so much money from your merchandise that you don't have to go on tour, you don't have to go on tour. Yeah. It's just the consumption and how you're going to monetize what you do and whether you want to or not, because some people don't want to tour. Yeah. And some people just live to tour. Yeah. If it were me, I would, if I was in a band, I think everything would revolve around tours. Yeah, but nowadays it's really hard. This week I was with the booker from the Joiners, and the Joiners is a venue in Southampton. It's been there for 50 years, and it is an amazing venue. This guy is amazing. I mean, this guy, he doesn't just book bands in. As a promoter, he does everything to keep that place going. He's a smart cookie. And he's just saying it's really hard. Yeah. All of a sudden, the Beer Keller in Bristol's closed down. Venues are closing down left, right, and centre because costs are going up, and and there's other things as well as costs going up. There's also things like noise complaints and other things. There's just a lot going on when you've got a venue. So it's very, very difficult, and therefore it's getting harder to tour for a band to go on tour. Like where with the Bruce and Mark and the other guys, we're about to put a music industry tour together. We're going to be going to Bristol, Manchester, Belfast, Glasgow, and London, and somewhere else. And when we go to Sheffield, and when we go to those places, we're not even doing it in a tour bus. We're doing it in a splitter. and we're doing it over 6 days. And in order to do it properly, it's going to cost us 14 grand.
Wow.
That's how much the 6-day tour is going to be,
Yeah.
with bringing in a few guests who aren't getting paid a lot, to hire the venue, to hire the splitter, for petrol, for accommodation. Could we do it cheaper? Yes, but we wouldn't get the desired effect out of it.
Yeah.
But still, it just goes to show that just for a bunch of us to go and do this music industry tour, we're not going to charge for it, so therefore we don't need to sell tickets. We're just hiring the venue ourselves, we're bringing the people in ourselves. It's going to cost 14 grand for 6 days.
Yeah.
So it's really hard when you're a band and you're like, yeah, let's go on tour and just live on tour. Okay, cool. Well, how much are you going to charge? And if you can only get 5 people to a gig in Southampton, then you ain't going to get paid any money. And if you're coming from Manchester, you got to get there. It's expensive. You got to stay somewhere. It's the idea of staying in a van when you're 18 and you'll go, no, it's cool, we're all going to stay in a van. Go and do that for a couple of days and see how you feel.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
So, so the costs go up. It's very, very difficult. So should you tour? If you want to tour, yes. And I think it's very important, if you want to be a gigging band, to get out of your city. There's so many bands that can pull 200 people in their city, but when they go to the next city, they're getting 20 people or five people or nobody. And so, you've done a good job in your city, but if you think about the world and the 7 billion people in the world, you haven't even scratched the surface.
Yeah.
So you've got to get out of your city. But that's if you want to be a live gigging touring band. So there are bands which see themselves as that. Do you have to tour? Not at all. There's so many ways that you can monetize now that you don't have to tour if you don't want to. It's a matter of choice. And if anyone tells you you're not real if you don't tour, that's fine. They're just living in the past.
Yeah, so it's not a necessity anymore by any means. That's interesting.
But you will have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and a lot of van life. Okay, so final questions from Tony. How much distance should be between each show? I manage a band that's building their following. We have a lot of shows lined up over the next couple of weeks, but I'm afraid that the locations are too close together.
It's a great question. It's a really good question because bands want to play. And I'm going to extend the question, sorry Tony, but not just how often they should play, but how long they should play when they get there.
Yeah.
Because it is a part of it. Because I'm constantly seeing bands play too long.
Yeah.
And if you give a band a choice and say, do you want to play for 20 minutes or do you want to play for 30 minutes? They go, more.
Yeah.
And if you give them 40 minutes, they go, we'll stick some covers in, we'll do 40 minutes. It's not the right thing. I would rather see a band get on stage for 20 minutes and just tear it up.
Yeah,
literally smash it up, just make it amazing. And everyone goes, is that it? And you go, yeah. And if you want to come and see the next show, it's here. Because it's that burst of energy. If you go on for 40 minutes, then people are like, yeah, it was really good, I really enjoyed that. Much less likely to come and see the next show. So it all goes hand in hand. The promotion, how good the show is, how long you're playing for. I think if you are playing, for example, we're in Brighton, if you're a Brighton band, venues are going to really, really hate it if you have 2 shows booked up very, very close together in the city, because it's very hard to get people down. So if your fan base have got the choice of 2 gigs, someone's going to lose out. In fact, both of them are going to lose out, because if you can get 50 people down to one venue, if you then say, come to both, chances are you'll get 20 on one and 30 on the other, or 50 on one and none of the other.
In student areas, people will generally just pick the cheaper one, which
Absolutely
then,
right,
provides a problem as well.
Or the better venue. If you, from your point of view, you're like, we just want to play, which is great, but if there's a really great venue and then there's a not so good venue, where are you going to go? You're going to go to that venue. If they serve because venues are struggling and they might not have the best beer and everyone goes, well, not the beer there. Every detail matters when you go and see a band live, because people don't go and see bands live every single day. Yeah. So how long should you leave it? Well, I think it does depend on how many people you can pull to a show. Sometimes things crop up that you just can't say no to. Yeah. And you have to take the flak for it, and venues won't like it. But you need to look after venues, because number one, they won't be there if we don't look after them. But number two, they are genuinely trying to do the right thing. Yeah. They're trying to get you down to play a gig and a bunch of people to actually watch that show. So I certainly, if it were me, I certainly wouldn't be doing 2 shows in the same city within a couple of weeks. I think I'd leave it, because if even a month, if I've seen a band last night, if I came to see your band last night, and then in 2 weeks' time you say, come to the next gig, I'm going to be like, probably not.
Yeah.
No offence, but like, but the reality is not. Whereas 3 months goes past and you say, go see a gig, I'm like, absolutely, can't wait, I want to see, have you got any new stuff, what's happening?
Yeah.
It's just, people aren't, your friends will come and see your first 3 gigs, and then after that, that's when you know where your fans are, because they trickle away.
Yeah.
So your job is to figure that out, how long, but it can't be too close together. And I would also look at what it is that you're doing to get people there, and the best thing that you can do is have the best live show that people say, we have to do that again. So there are bands that I can think of that as soon as they walked off the stage, all I was thinking of is, I want to see them again.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm more likely to go and see them if it's in the next 3-4 weeks, because I'm prepared to see them again. If they're just like, they're really, really good, I really enjoyed them, less likely. So there's a lot of factors on that. There's a real lot of factors, but I think you've got to be careful, and you've got to look after venues. And if a venue says you can't book a show, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, either side of that, then, and you want to play more, then get out of the city, go and do some other stuff. If you want to play, then go and build your fan base in another place. If you're in Brighton, Portsmouth's an hour down the road. Worthing is just down the road. You can go and do a gig in Worthing and in Brighton, and if you want to get out of that circuit, if you want to be on the circuit, there are still venues that you can go and play. So I think at the moment, every band's going to be different, but the first thing you've got to consider is, what are you doing to get people there, to make that show so good that they want to come back again? If every time you play a gig, that venue is beyond expectations of the promoter, they won't care.
Yeah.
If you can get 100 people to that gig, and the promoter's hoping to get 50, you can play a gig every single day, and the promoter will just be like, we'll get you back whenever you want, because the promoter's job is to get people through that door, to watch the show, to drink beer or other alcoholic stuff, buy merch, all of those things that helps the venue, because the venue might take a percentage of the merch. So anything that it needs people, it needs footfall, and it needs people to come down. So as long as you can bring the people, you're winning. You can play a gig.
It's largely dependent if you can just pull it off.
It's all on you. Yeah. I mean, that's the best thing about this, and the worst thing is it is completely on you. If you can take 100 people to that venue, the promoter's going to be happy. If you do a gig tomorrow in the same city and you can still take 100 people, the promoter's going to be happy. However, if you can't, then don't make it hard for yourself. So this is all about what you are capable of, and if you're not, then build your fan base. And there's 450 videos on my channel on ways that you can build and look after your fan base in order to get people to do the things that you want to do. So get watching.
Awesome. And that was the last question.
That's the ill hashtag Ask Damo show. Good. So if you've got a question, then hashtag Ask Damo. And if you
hashtag Ask Damo.
Ask Damo. If you've got any prezzies, or if you've got any stuff that you want to feature on our wall, or you want us to listen to, then send it through. If you've got any t-shirts, then it's getting cold, so send them through. And
send them over.
Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube and ask questions on Instagram, and come and talk to me.
Yeah.
Good. Have a good one.
See you guys tomorrow.